Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, kiddos. I hope you are all staying so nice and warm and dry as you're doing your distance learning. Today, we're going to be diving into a new text called She Unnames Them by Ursula K. Le Guin. I think that's how you say it. Real quickly, I'm going to remind you how we annotate, show you how I annotate, and go over some expectations for our first read. So when you go into StudySync, you will have an introduction video. I suggest you watch it. It's kind of a little rundown of what to expect with this text. And yeah, it's just really interesting. And after you watch that video, I'd like for you to take a few minutes to write down some expectations you have for this text. When you're reading, you'll notice this nice little audio button up here. When you click on audio, your computer will read this story for you. If you don't want to have audio, you don't have to use it. It's a great tool for me because sometimes when I'm following along, I will notice things that wouldn't necessarily stand out to me if I was reading by myself. Really quickly, I want to review how to do some annotation on StudySync. So you'll click this annotation box right here. I would not use keyboard for annotation. It's confusing. So I already see a bolded word that I'm not too sure of the definition. I have chosen the color yellow for my words I do not know. And I'm going to add a note down here that say use context clues to find definition. Create note. So when you click on it, you will have your note and why you highlighted it. Very good. I like it. If you are more of a pen to paper sort of person, I use multiple colors when I'm annotating. It just helps me keep things in order. So I'm going to listen to some audio. I'll be pausing as we go, and I'll be doing the first 2-3 paragraphs with you. All right, y'all. Let's do this.
Most of them.
I just realized that the computer audio doesn't record on this thing. So, most of them accepted namelessness with the perfect indifference with which they had so long accepted and ignored their names. That is a very striking first sentence. I'm sorry, it really captured my attention. So I'm going to go in there with red because that was just a wow to me. What a way to start. Whales and dolphins, seals and sea otters consented with particular grace and alacrity, sliding into anonymity as into their element. A faction of yaks, however, protested. A faction of yaks. I'm not sure what this word faction means, so I'm going to say need definition. Create note. However, protested. They said that yak sounded right and that almost everyone who knew they existed called them that. Unlike the ubiquitous creatures, very cool. Let's go ahead and highlight that one as well. I think we'll be able to use context clues to find out the definition of this one. creatures such as rats and fleas, who had been called by hundreds or thousands of different names since Babel, the yaks could truly say they said that they had a name. So the yaks are just very firm about what you are going to call them. They discussed the matter all summer. The councils of the elderly females finally agreed that though the name might be useful to others, it was so redundant from the yak point of view that they never spoke it themselves, and hint might as well dispense with it. After they presented the argument in this light to their bulls, a full consensus, let's highlight consensus, was delayed only by the onset of severe early blizzards. Soon after the beginning of the thaw, their agreement was reached and the designation yak was returned to the donor. So at first they're like, this is our name. This is how we're going to be called. And then they realized that they never used the word yak anyway, so they didn't really care. That's neat to me. And then they said return to the donor. So who gave them the name in the first place that they feel the need to return? I'm going to use the color purple for my questions. Among the domestic animals, few horses had cared what anybody called them since the failure of Dean Swift's. If you'll notice right here, we've got a little icon. And it'll tell us who this is, because it's a reference that we all won't normally understand. Dean Swift's Anglo-Irish author Jonathan Swift, whose satirical novel Gulliver's Travels imagines a race of talking horses. Failure of Dean Swift's attempt to name them from their own vocabulary. Cattle, sheep, swine, asses, mules, and goats, along with chickens, geese, and turkeys, all agreed enthusiastically to give their names back to the people to whom, as they put it, they belonged. Okay. So is giving their names to the people their way of submitting? Just a thought. So I'm going to put purple right here. Create note. And then Dean Swift's. When we have an allusion like that, a reference to another piece of work, it's really important to point those out because it's probably going to come up on a test. So let's do green. Let's do green. And say allusion. Allusion with an A, not with an I. Create note. Alright, y'all. I'm going to leave you to it. This is a very interesting story. It's got a lot of allusions in it, a lot that you can work off of, a lot of questions that I have as a reader, and I'm sure you have as a reader. Don't be afraid to ask them. Remember to go back to the discussion board on our page and leave a comment about this text after you read it. All right, everybody. Good luck.